Okay, so today we're looking at tables of values, and it actually wants us to come up with the equations today. So once we decide if it's linear, quadratic, or exponential, we gotta write our equation for it. Okay, so these are the three equations. Linear is y equals mx plus b, exponential is y equals a times b to the x exponent, and quadratic is in the form y equals a times x minus p and x minus q, where p and q are our x-intercepts. So if I take a look at number 1, how do I go from 12 to 0? Subtract 12. How do I go from 0 to negative 4? Subtract 4. That's fine. How do I go from negative 4 to 0? And add 4. I don't know what I did there. And then from 0 to 12? Add 12. Are these the same? No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the changes again. So to go from 12 to negative 4, I have to add 8. Negative 4 to 4, I add 8. And 4 to 12, add 8. So this one is quadratic. I'm going to write that over here. And now I need to put it into my equation. So this is the equation it wants me to plug into. The y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. So what I'm going to do is, if I take a look, there's two values with 0, 8 and 4. Those are going to be my p and q. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to move this up. I don't know if this equation's still there. So I'm going to plug that in, and then also what I want to do when I'm plugging this in is I want to find an x and y value to plug in for x and y. So I'm going to plug in 6 for x and negative 4 for y. It doesn't matter which ones I plug in as long as it's not the ones with the zeros. So I'm going to have negative 4 equals a, because I don't know what a is. And then I'm going to plug in 6 for x, minus 4, and then in my other set of parentheses, I'm going to have 6 minus 8. Okay. Questions on how I plugged it in? What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to find my a value so I can actually write the equation. Okay, so then what is 6 minus 4? 2. And 6 minus 8? Negative 2. What is 2 times negative 2? Negative 4. So I have negative 4 equals negative 4a. So to get my a by itself, I'm going to divide by negative 4 on both sides. And then I get a equals 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my equation. I have my p, q, and a. So I'm going to plug those three back in. I'm going to write this on top because I did not give us enough room. I have y equals, I have 1, so I don't need to write 1 for a. I'm just going to write x minus 4 times x minus 8 for my equation. But if it was another number like 2, I'd plug it in out front. Questions on writing that equation? Okay. So on number 2, I want to take a look at it. What kind of pattern does this one have? What kind of pattern does number 2 have? A linear, but what's the change in the numbers? Add 2. So then to write this equation, remember it's in the y equals mx plus b form. What is my m? You guys remember? My m is the number that I keep repeating over and over again. 2. And then for my b value, that's the number with the 0. So, plus 1. Questions on this equation? Okay. On number 3, what's the pattern with the numbers? Dividing by 2. So this one is going to be what type of function? Quadratic, linear, or exponential? Exponential. And then to write this equation, it's y equals a times b to the x. My a value for this one is the number with 0. So this is my a value, the 8. And then inside the parentheses is the number I kept multiplying by. Since I wasn't multiplying here and I was actually dividing, what I want to do is I just want to write it as a fraction. So I'm going to write it as 1/2. Because the number I was dividing by was 2, and so I just used the 1 as a placeholder. So if I'd been dividing by 3, it would have been a 1/3. Okay. Questions on number 3? Okay. Then the next thing we're going to talk about is an average rate of change. This is the same thing as finding slope, except we use it on lines that aren't linear. So can I move on to the back? So this one wants me to compare, it's talking about 2 different social media websites. It wants me to compare the average rates of change from day 10 to day 20. So I'm going to start with website A. And to do this, I'm going to find my change in, why am I forgetting this? Change in y over my change in x. So I'm looking at this day and this day, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my second y value, which is the 2150, minus the first y value, which is the 1400. And then I'm going to divide by 20 minus 10. So what's 2150 minus 140? $750. And then 20 minus 10? 10. So 750 divided by 10? 75. I'm going to do the same thing with B. Except for B, this one gives me a table. So right here is where 10 is. And right here is where 20 is. Pretend I can draw a straight line. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my second y value and subtract my first y value. So I have 1800 minus, these lines are counting by 300, so 900 over 20 minus 10. Okay. What's 1800 minus 900? 900. 20 minus 10? 10. 900 divided by 90. So, which one do you think is doing better? A or B? Based on these two numbers. B. B has more growth. So B on number 4 wants me to guess which website's going to have more members after 50 days and why I think that. So which one do you think is going to have more members? Still B, why? It's already bigger? Okay. Yeah. So B, because it keeps, what do I say? Because it's gaining more members at a faster rate. Okay. Questions here?